Hey friends, it's Laura. Welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be making these adorable fall floral ghosties. Here are some of the supplies that I'm going to be using. We are going to be decoupaging them with cute florals from a napkin. You'll need a paintbrush and some glue. I'm using Mod Podge. You will also need a rolling pin, some clay, and a couple of objects to make your form in which the ghost will be draped over as it's drying. So you can see here I have a couple of different sized items so that I can make a couple of different sized ghosts. I have a small cup with a small ball, and then I also have a couple of larger containers. One is a container of jam, another one is a solo cup, and a tennis ball. I decided to use the tennis ball and the jam. That way it's not trying to tip over. The jam just has a lot more weight to it than the solo cup, but you can use whatever you have on hand. I also grabbed a little thing of peaches there that you can see. I end up not using that, but I thought it would be good for graduation from the curved top to slowly expand out to where it goes straight down. I didn't end up needing it, so I didn't use it, but that's an example of how you can get creative and look in your pantry for things that you already own in order to create the shape that you need. I use Scotch tape to adhere that tennis ball to the top of the jar of jam. That way it is nice and secure and not going to move around as I drape my clay over it. Next important step, once you grab your clay out, is to protect your work surface and your rolling pin. If you're like me, you don't have multiple rolling pins for crafting and for cooking and keep them separate. I've got this rolling pin that I use for both things. Because of that, I am very intentional to use parchment paper whenever I am crafting. That way my craft supplies don't get absorbed into the wood rolling pin. This rolling pin is excellent, highly recommend. I think I got it at Crate & Barrel, so it was an investment. I think it was like a $30 rolling pin, but it's perfect because it's got these little measurement rubber bands on the side, and you can take off as many rubber bands as you need to get the rolling pin to roll out the thickness that you desire. So I start off with, I think, 3/8 of an inch, and then I end up going down to 1/4 of an inch for the thickness of my clay. I'm using air dry clay. You can use polymer clay if you like. I preferred the air dry for this particular project. I find air dry clay a little bit easier to work with. It's easier on my wrists and I have tendinitis. Polymer clay is pretty tough and it takes a while to get it malleable. So that's why I chose to use the air dry clay, but oven baked clay will work just as well as long as you do put it in the oven to cure it. I'm going to be using a lot of water throughout this process. My air dry clay has been used before, so I had packed it away in a Ziploc bag, actually a double Ziploc, and it still was kind of dry and crumbly. So I end up grabbing a small cup of water, dipping my fingertips into it, and then I add that water from my fingertips into the clay as I'm working it and trying to get that clay more malleable. This is the process for your air dry clay. If you are using polymer clay, you are not going to add water to it. They actually sell a specific oil-based softener for oven baked clay. You don't use water for the polymer clay and you don't use oil for the air dry clay. So just make sure that you know what kind of clay that you are using. That way you're adding the right substance to it in order to get it malleable. I'm going to be using a wood skewer to create my eye and mouth holes for the ghost. And then again, just rubbing my finger with water on my fingertips all across the surface of this ghost and on the bottom edge to try to soften up some of the wrinkles and divots that naturally exist within the clay. You will never get this perfect. Especially with the air dry clay, it tends to get a few shallow surface cracks in it as it dries out. So it's not going to be perfect, and that is what our flowers are for. In addition to being so girly and so sweet, we are going to decoupage them on top of the clay to hide some of those imperfections that are naturally going to exist within the clay. I have a set of floral napkins here. HomeGoods, Marshalls, TJ Maxx. Those are excellent places to get some of these really cute decorative napkins. They sell them for parties and hosting, obviously, but you can also use them in your crafting. So that's where I got mine, and I'm just cutting up all the different florals. It's going to be really important for you to separate the layers of the napkin because we are only going to be using the printed top layer. Napkins come in 2 or 3 layers typically, and if you are careful and pull them apart, you will notice that there's a couple of soft layers underneath of the printed top layer. That's what gives it the absorption and the soft surface despite being printed on the top. So we're gonna pull those other layers off and only use the very top layer that has our print printed on it. After I fussy cut all of those flowers out, I grab my ghost and some Mod Podge. I am using a paintbrush to put the Mod Podge onto my ghost and then adhere my floral on top of that. And then once I get that flower down, I'm gonna go back over it with Mod Podge. So Mod Podge underneath the flower and on top of it. And that's gonna seal it so nicely and make sure that you have a really nice finished product. I go about the process and just trying to make sure that I have a good visual balance between the different color flowers I'm using. I want to make sure that I have orange and pink intermixed all the way around the ghost and that it's never too much of one color block in one area. That way it just looks nice and congruent when I've got them out on display. One of the tips I have for you is to actually place some of the florals towards the bottom of your ghost and fold it under the edge to the inside of the ghost. I think that helps create a much nicer finished look on the bottom. If you have any spots that you couldn't quite even out with the water and your hands when you were molding it, if you still have some rough parts on the bottom, if you fold the florals over that edge so that part of it's on the outside and part of it's on the inside, it'll help cover up some of those imperfections. I am making 2 ghosts. I've got a tiny, adorable one, and then I've got a slightly larger one. I think the pair is so cute. I especially love that this is what I call a spooky Halloween. And spooky Halloween in my mind is like this really fun, really girly, kid-friendly kind of Halloween. Not super scary, just kind of adorable, really. So I love how cute these are. And because they've got the autumn flowers on them, I feel like they don't read too Halloween. I would totally be fine putting these up in September and future years and keeping them all the way out through Halloween because they are adorable and autumnal and a little ode to Halloween as well. Here's what my 2 adorable ghosts look like. I arranged them on a shelf with some of my dried flowers, which ends up being perfect because the dried flowers reflect the colors that I used in the floral ghosts. And I hope you enjoyed this process and feel encouraged to make some of your own. I am on a mission this year to make more heirloom items that are handmade for our home, and this is one step in that direction. I think they are so cute. I've definitely got to give a shout out. I did not come up with this idea. I have seen it on Instagram. I've seen it on Pinterest. I've seen a few different people do it, so I don't know who created it. But I did want to give an ode to the inspiration and make sure that I told you guys to check out the inspiration online. I personally love Pinterest for this. I have so many good ideas, and sometimes, like in this scenario, the project turns out just as cute as what you saw online. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you want to see more of my creative lifestyle and all the creative hobbies I get up to and mental health tips, make sure you subscribe to my channel. I am a therapist and I love mixing creative hobbies with supporting mental health. Those are two things that I'm very passionate about, and I think they go together so well. So much joy and happiness can come from creative hobbies. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I will catch you in the next one. Make sure to give it a like, leave me a comment down below, and let me know, is this a DIY that you would try? I'll see you later. Bye, friends.